UML diagrams can often be quite daunting, especially for business users. Is there any way that you can customize the diagram and use alternative images to make it easier to read?
Yes, certainly we can do that, and I have an example UML diagram on screen. This is a communication diagram. It happens to be for a domain name registration system. It's just the kind of information that you'd want to convey to a business user. But just with these standard boxes and arrows from the UML notation, that could indeed be a little bit daunting. So what we want is a representation that conveys that information but in a more friendly way to a non-technical audience. And we can do that using Enterprise Architect's alternate images, and I'm showing that representation on screen now. I've customized the various UML elements and the rendering of them to use a more visually appealing notation. These are just alternate images. Now, how do we arrive at a representation like this? Well, going back to our original UML diagram, I can select any of these elements and then choose an alternative image to display for that element. So I can select an alternative image using the image manager here. Now I've got a good selection of images that are available from a library of images freely downloadable for Enterprise Architect. I can also import my own custom graphics if I choose to do that. I'm just going to select this accounting image here, and that'll be a good enough representation for my payments subsystem. And so I can do that by choosing any of these elements, simply right-clicking, select the alternate image, and away I go. And so I arrive at representation much like this. Now that's one way of customizing elements on an ad hoc basis or a per element basis. We can go further, however, and customize the way any given element is rendered using what we call shape scripts in Enterprise Architect. I'm going to use the built-in Archimate profile to show what good effect this can have. So this is the Archimate toolbox that I'm displaying on the left of screen now. I'll drop on a meaning element. Now clearly this is not part of the standard UML notation. This is one of the Archimate elements, the meaning element, and it's used a shape script in Enterprise Architect to get this cloud-like display. How do I set up such a shape script for Enterprise Architect elements? Well, I can do that for any stereotyped element in Enterprise Architect using this UML types dialog. For any of those stereotypes, I can simply assign either a metafile or a shape script. Just to give you a quick example, here are the coded functions that help Enterprise Architect to render vector graphics. Just one example of a shape script in Enterprise Architect. So users can leverage Enterprise Architect's profiling and shape scripting mechanism to customize the rendering of elements for any domain-specific modeling language, just as we've done here for Archimate.
I noticed the cloud is apparent in the toolbox for the meaning element, but that wasn't necessarily the case for some of the UML elements that we'd seen previously. Is it possible for users to customize the icons that appear in the toolbox in the project browser?
Yes, it certainly is. Sparx has done this for the Archimate profile to match the rendering on diagrams with the icons in the toolbox and also what we can see here in the project browser, and that is certainly available to users to develop in their own profiles by assigning an icon in the supported attributes for the profile that they define. There's a consistent rendering then between the toolbox representation, the diagram, and the project browser, and that's all made available and explained in the Enterprise Architect user guide.